Tom Nolan, how are you today?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I always like to start off, talking a little bit about what we do at Social Capital and,
Yep.
why we included, Kendra Scott in our in our honorees as well as yourself.
Yep.
And Because it's a little bit different, we honor companies and CEOs that really respect people and understand that people are the whole point of profits. You might think that is such a simple thing, but it's amazing how
Yeah.
many companies kind of miss the point. And, we talk a lot about Adam Smith, the philosophy of capitalism. He's got this great quote where he says, no matter how selfish man may seem to be, what he desires more than anything else is to see the betterment of others.
Yep.
And it's really an incredible quote when you think about it, coming from, who's kind of considered the philosophical father of capitalism.
Right.
Capitalism gets a lot of knocks nowadays for being about greed, but we really believe that it's about people and it's about taking care of people. And if you do it the right way and you do it, with a long-term plan, the profits roll in and they roll in great ways, and you feel good about them too. So you are a company that gets that in oh so many ways,
Right.
from the founding of your company and the reasons why. And I think, a lot of people know, especially after Kendra's book, her extraordinary background and humble background, coming, from starting this company in her apartment with a few bucks.
Yep.
And, building it into, a multi gajillion dollar company. But she did it in the right way. And she continues to, do it in the right way. And now you've taken the reins, and you're continuing with that same essence that she implanted in the company. So first of all, I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and contributing in this way to what it is that we talk about, and just thank you for being that kind of company and that kind of leader.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, it's really everything you said resonates with me. I completely agree. I mean, I tell people often, even when they go through the interview process with us here, I mean, you don't work for companies, you work for people.
Mm.
I think Kendra's really done a great job of setting the foundation and the roots for that and showing how much people do matter, and the social capital that they provide is really, at the end of the day, all the company has, right?
Yeah.
So everything you said resonates with me. I appreciate the platform to be able to tell others about this really special little thing down here that we have in Austin, Texas.
So we first honored you. I think we honored you in several articles, actually, but one of them was about empowerment, and we'll talk about that in a minute because it's a big part of your company in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But you've got these amazing three pillars: family, philanthropy, and fashion.
Yep.
Sometimes you hear the philanthropy going in conjunction with fashion. You rarely hear the family one, being in conjunction with fashion. And I would love you to just explain to our readers and viewers what that's about.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. We have three founding pillars that Kendra started. We're in our 20th year this year, which is amazing. I've been around the company for almost 10 years now as a member of the board and an operating partner here. But when she started the company 20 years ago, it was all about family, fashion, and philanthropy. I mean, she was a single mom at the time, as you mentioned. She started the company as a spare bedroom of her house with $500. And it's been foundational. She's held on to those things all the way through it. I think, family means a lot to me personally. It's turned into meaning a lot to me professionally as well. Your family shapes who you are and what you're about. It shapes your core belief system. And I think we've translated that into the organization into a way where we want to treat people like they are members of our family. And it's funny, over the years, I think a couple of things that I would extrapolate from that, Chris, are, you always tell your family the truth, right? You're honest and open with it, no matter how easy or challenging the message might be. And I think we've kind of held steadfast to that. And over the years, we've gotten so close. I've personally gotten so close with a lot of the people here. I remember when Denise Chumley, who was our head of design at the time, told me she was having a baby, and in my office, and I cried with her, like it was like my sister had told me she was having a child. So, it's evolved over the years. Kendra used to call it the sister rule. when we were 99% female, it was easier to do that. But nowadays we have a lot more men working in the company. So it's your sister and your brother role. It's the golden rule, if you will, right? I mean, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. You mentioned it earlier. It seems like it's an easy principle to follow, but unfortunately, I think that we might be the exception, not the rule, in treating people with kindness and fairness and empathy the way you would your family.
Certainly in the fashion industry. I mean, that, I worked in Hollywood for years and, worked with a lot of fashionistas and fashion companies. And let me tell you, that was not the overarching idea and principle that I used to feel when, working with those companies. So, that element of family, I'm really, we've done several articles on family, and it's always amazing to me that the actual concept of your own family, how it's always our number one article of the year, which I never thought it would be. I knew they would be well read, but to have an article on family be the number one article in a business section just really blows me away. But it just, makes you realize even more that employees are people more than anything. So you got to see them as people. And if one of the most important parts of people's lives, are their families, obviously. Right.
If you think about like, I mean, I spend a lot more time at work with my work family than I do my actual, family, children. And there's so many milestones that you go through if you're with a company long enough in people's lives, whether it's a marriage or unfortunately a divorce or children being born or parents coming in. I mean, there's a lot of milestones you go through in somebody's life. And I think what we've learned over the years is that family aspect. A lot of people just give lip service to it. But I think it's really having empathy for what people are going through. And because of our constituency being so predominantly female over the years, we've had so many working moms over the years. So we've really had to lean into balance in people's lives and understanding what people are going through in their personal lives to be able to give them the comfort and the safety, if you will, to be able to live their best personal lives. I mean, it's ultimately going to lead to them living their best professional lives as well. We've seen that happen in spades, and it's authentic to us, right? We don't just say it. We hire people that believe in that genuinely. And I think it pays a really high dividend at the end of the day. And we've seen it, as we went through COVID and the world has changed a lot. We've seen it in higher retention rates in our organization as well. I mean, people have a strong connection to our company for those reasons. And then ultimately, the proof is in our performance and the strength of our balance sheet and everything else of the organization. You get that right mindset and you have everybody paddling in the same direction. It works.
So that's a great segue into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, the whole concept of empowerment. And, obviously women are great, your greatest demographic. And the concept of empowerment has been so entrenched in your company, both in your empowering your customers, with these custom, products that they can make, and your jewelry is relatively affordable for what it is as well, and also just the empowerment within the company of your people, like you were talking about, and also your empowerment of the community. I know that you guys, through your philanthropy, you guys give a considerable amount of money to support children's and women's causes in the community. Talk a little bit about how that empowerment is so important and what it's like for you to be at a company and lead a company that does that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think empowerment is, again, so much of this is rooted in authenticity. I think who you are as a person shapes who you become as a leader. And I learned personally early on the power of putting smart people around you, and then really allowing those people to do your jobs. Also, kind of coming up through my career, you remember certain things along the way, and I always remember when I felt like a boss didn't trust me, right? And I felt like everything I do is being I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling of I didn't have a voice at the table. I didn't have a vote. And I wanted to make sure that if I ever got put in a position of authority, I wanted to make sure that I hired people and allowed them to do what they wanted to do and be great. You mentioned a great quote earlier. I love the quote that Harry Truman says, you can accomplish anything in life as long as you don't mind who takes credit for it. I have held true to that over the years, and it's easy for me because I'm not that smart. So it's easy for me to put smarter people around me, but I think it starts with, again, that authenticity of saying, look, and entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like Kendra started this company as a single mom. we have an entrepreneurial spirit and organization. And what that means to me, when I was an entrepreneur and had my own company, it wasn't coming up with crazy ideas all the time. It was the accountability of not being able to make payroll, right? If you had a bad month, bad year, or bad quarter. And I think that spirit lives within all of us here at the organization. So when it comes down to empowerment, we hire really great people and we allow them to be great. And we hire the kind of leaders that want to do the same thing as well. And then what that builds is a culture of entrepreneurial spirit, empowerment to allow people to succeed and fail. And when they fail, there's not repercussions, there's learnings. And I think it creates a safe environment in order to do that successfully. And then you mentioned in our communities, we've got 150 stores now, which is remarkable because when I started, we've done over 11,000 events this year. And in every one of our stores, I look at our store managers, they're the CEO of those stores, right? And we give directional information on how to operate their businesses, but they know their customer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a heck of a lot better than I do. And they're allowed to make decisions independently as the CEO of those stores. And they really lean into their communities through events. We've done over 11,000 events this year already. And the communities that we're in feel like we're a part of them because we have empowered our leaders to be able to do that in retail. And then we do it across the board at the organization.
I love it when people answer my next two questions, within the last one. And I was going to just say, with the explosive growth you had, and you, actually described it specifically, with, that's extraordinary in such a short amount of time. With that explosive growth, how do you maintain and, retain that authenticity and, treating all your people with respect and not letting them become numbers? And it sounds like you kind of already started to spell that out, giving that empowerment, giving that power to the CEO, as you put it, the CEO of each store, and the local community events and whatnot. Talk a little bit more about that, because I would love to hear about some of these events and what you do with these events and how these events are connected to the overall motif and idea of your company in general.
Yeah. Well, I would say, number one, the first point of as we grow, keeping that connection is really, really important. And it's hard, right? It was a lot easier when we were a smaller company and everybody was sitting around the table together. So we try to be really disciplined about over communication. Everybody knows what's going on as often as we can. I make myself really available. Kendra makes herself really available. The leadership does a really good job of leading by example. Getting out to the field, being available to talk to customers, talking to employees. I think that's really important to show, for as big an organization as we've become now, having over 3,000 employees and over more than 150 stores, we're a relatively flat organization. We all work in the retail stores, we work in the distribution centers. So there's a lot of engagement there. So staying connected, I think, is really important and critical to that. So you mentioned philanthropy as well. We've done, since I've been here, over 100,000 events. And I think one of the unique things about our company specifically is what a lot of organizations, and philanthropy is really important to a lot of organizations, as it should be. But what we do is we really take a one-to-one approach to it. And Kendra always had the mentality of, she wants to help, and we as an organization want to help people in need. We've made women and children's sort of our pillar to kind of jump off of. But in every market that we're in, anybody can walk into one of our stores, and it could be the Red Cross all the way down to Mary Smith, right? And if we want to help a friend in need, whether it's somebody who's sick or spouse lost their job, or they have a sick pet, a sick child. I mean, there's a number of different things. I'll give you one specific example. Actually, I'll give you two specific examples. Yesterday, I had a phone conversation with a family in Baton Rouge I have 4 children, so this is unimaginable to me, but a family in Baton Rouge who a mother and 3 of her 4 kids were in a car on December 17th of last year, driving home from an event together, and they were hit by a drunk driver head on, and all 3 of the children passed away, and the mother's in the hospital for a while. One of the women who tragically died in that was a huge Kendra Scott fan, and one of our most famous necklaces is called an Elisa, and she wore it all the time. It was given to her by her best friend. She actually had it after she passed away. They put it on her headstone And I saw this video on TikTok and it touched me.
Wow.
I mean, I can't imagine losing can't imagine losing a child as a parent. I found out who the woman was. I called her and spoke to her and her mom yesterday and told her. And we as a company, as soon as this happened, it was in Baton Rouge. Our store manager and our event manager found out who they were, found out what their needs were, helped from a medical perspective. I think we raised over $25,000 for them. Kendra matched it personally.
Wow.
And I talked to the family yesterday, and I think we do things on that level because it's important to us. All of us have empathy for what they're going through, and the store managers and the event managers in our stores recognize that they're part of the community, right? And the Baton Rouge community was really hurting. So we do that on a daily basis. Like I said, we've done more than 11,000 events this year in 150 stores, and that is one specific example. And there's countless every single day. And I'll tell you just very quickly, a personal story for me. I was on our board for a number of years, and we had a transaction with a private equity firm. And after that transaction, Kendra had asked me to join the organization full time, and I was living in North Carolina, and I had really no interest in moving to Texas. I never thought I'd live in Texas. I was very happy on the coast. So was my family. And before I made my final decision, I went to what we call a Kendra Cares event at Sloan Kettering in New York City. I was there for another meeting. And what Kendra Cares is we take, customization has been important to us from the very beginning. We take our color bar, and where you basically can make an earring, a necklace, a bracelet with your favorite stone and your favorite color metal. And literally when you're in the store, you can do that and walk out with it. But we take a mobile version of that and we bring it to hospitals and schools and businesses. And I went to an event that we did at Sloan Kettering in their pediatric oncology ward. And I'd never been in a pediatric oncology ward. I wasn't looking forward to it. Like I said, I have 4 children. It was not something that I was excited about doing, to be honest. And I'm not an emotional guy. I cry at the movies and sad commercials and stuff. So I really didn't want to go to this. Anyway, I went begrudgingly. I remember going into the elevator, pressing the button. I remember how it smelled. I get out, and I was expecting a really sad, unhappy place. But what I found when the elevator doors opened was I heard music, and there was balloons, and there was clowns, and it was like the happiest place in the world. And I made color bar product jewelry for these sick kids and their parents and their siblings and their grandparents. And it was the happiest place I'd been to. And I remember leaving, going down the elevator. I went across the street, lost it. I held it together for a couple hours, called my wife, and I said, we're moving to Texas. Like, I'm never going to be able to work in an organization that, impact people's lives one-to-one the way that I did that day. And I think, sorry, that's a long-winded answer to your question, Chris.
No, I love that. I love that.
That's how we touch people, just 2 specific examples. And we don't do it by just writing checks to large organizations. We do it in a one-to-one basis where people need it and when people need it the most. And I think at the end of the day, that creates a real stickiness and connection with our customers in their communities, because I recognize a lot of companies sell beautiful things and pretty jewelry. I know that I like to think that ours is better, and the natural materials we use and our price points and all that sort of thing. But really, at the end of the day, I think customers want an experience. They want to have a connection. And I think that we've done that inadvertently through philanthropy, not because it drives the business, which it ultimately does, but because we know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's an incredibly powerful story that you shared. And I love that, because it really goes to your motivation, obviously, for joining that company. You're attracted to some of the same things that customers are attracted to, that other people who work for that company are attracted to, that connection. Kendra's obviously a very authentic person. She built her company in a very authentic way. So those are big shoes to fill in a lot of ways, right? I mean, you came in and obviously you want to continue that. That there's always that question, right? When someone comes into a company that was founded by someone who is, dedicated with, every drop of blood they have to that company, will the next person that comes in have that same dedication, have that same love, that same devotion? I mean, it sounds like from what you're saying, you do, and you did. How hard is it for you, or how easy is it for you to continue, in her tradition.
Well, I don't think anything about it's hard. I work, I work really hard, and I think the expectations are really high, and they're tremendous, impossible shoes to fill. But I think part of the reason for our success is I don't try to fill them, right? I'm not Kendra. And there's a couple of things that I think have led to, our successful partnership. And number one, we've been working together now for quite a long time. It's been almost a decade. We have more of truly a familial relationship. We talk multiple times a day. I see her more as a sister and a friend genuinely, than I do a boss and a chairwoman. And we have an amazing amount of trust together. I like to think I'm good at the things that she's not great at, and I know that she's great at the things that I'm not great at. And I think we have a really amazing partnership, and we don't try, and I never try to be her, right? Like my name's not on the building. I just try to do the best that I can to articulate and explain and execute her vision. And hopefully I've done a pretty good job of getting the organization rallied behind that. And, I've had a couple of really good examples. Number one, I've been an entrepreneur. I started my own company and ran it. So I understand how a founder thinks. And I was my time at Ralph Lauren. I watched Ralph and Roger Farah do it as well as I think anybody's ever done it whose name's on a building. Ralph is the creative vision and voice for that organization, and Roger ran the business. And I think, both of them have been mentors to me. And that's kind of how I see it here. Kendra's she didn't go anywhere, right? She's really involved in the business and the creative side of things and the philanthropy side of things and the customer experience on a daily basis. And my job is just to run the business and communicate with her and execute her vision the best that I can. So the job, I would say it was hard because I'm not trying to be her, but we work really hard, and I'd like to think we're doing a really good job at it.
Yeah, we have a couple of other CEOs who have come in to companies that were either founded by someone or just run by someone for so long that the imprint was so powerful on the company by them. And I think there's a commonality that happens with that familial nature. When it's done well, it's, not that I'm replacing somebody or I'm next in line and this person's going to go off into the sunset. It's like we're just adding, I'm adding to the value of the company and bringing in, more ideas, more thoughts. She's still around, I'm just, partnering and complementing. And it sounds like that's the kind of situation you guys have.
I think, just broadly speaking, in general, I think humility goes a really long way in life. I'm the only person in my family to graduate high school, let alone college. My dad's an electrician, and I think having humility and having a servant mentality as it relates to leadership, and knowing that I'm going to take care of our people before I take care of myself, I think goes a really long way in earning trust amongst a workforce, earning trust amongst, a founder and somebody, or our board of directors, whoever it may be. And it's just kind of how it's not about me, but it's like we've surrounded ourselves. Kendra and I have surrounded ourselves. She surrounded herself with people that are like-minded in that regard, right? You don't want people that are like-minded in everything, because you want to have challenges, right? But I think having a philosophical like-mindedness about how to treat people, how to act, how to be humble, how not to have an ego. I don't see a lot of really successful, egotistical, genuine leaders or teachers or coaches. And I think at the end of the day, great leaders are teachers and coaches, right? So we've got a really nice mix here. And I think it allows us to get through some really challenging times better than most, because we're galvanized as an organization. And we're heading into some challenging times, right? It's funny, in my time as CEO here, we've dealt with, a global pandemic, social unrest, a war, a potential recession. And when we get our leadership team together, it's like, geez, we could handle anything, right? Come on, bring it. What else do you have? Supply chain issues. So it's, I think when you go through those things, whether it's a family or an organization or a sports team or whatever, I think that really galvanizes a group of individuals together to act and think like one.
And I love that humility concept. You go to like a little bazaar on the beach somewhere and look at jewelry makers, and they seem to be very humble people making their jewelry, and they seem very nice. But then when you look at jewelry as a trillion-dollar industry, uh, it doesn't seem to have the same feel. And it seems like the way you guys have created your success and continued it and dealt with a lot of these issues that have come your way over the last couple of years since you took over, is just trying to maintain and retain that humility with your customers, with the community, with your employees as well. Um, what for you is there a single thing? I mean, is that it? Is it humility? Is there a single thing that you can hone in on that has helped you to deal with all these challenges that have come your way and still continue to succeed so much in the last couple of years?
I mean, I don't know if it's one thing, Chris. I mean, we operate under the principle. I operate under the principle that the customer is our boss. Like at the end of the day, she signs our paychecks.
Yeah.
And the customer sometimes is literally our customer, right? The individual buying product on our website or one of our wholesale partners or our retail stores. But in a lot of ways, my job. I mean, we have organizational meetings once a month, and I step level, like from specialist all the way up to VP. And I'm really clear with them. Like, I work for them. They don't work for me. And so I would say if there is one thing that I think about, like, I know who our customer is, and I make sure that they come first. And sometimes it's our actual customer, and a lot of times it's our employees or my customer. So I think as long as I don't lose sight of that, which I don't anticipate losing sight of that, and we have an organization of people around that also are like-minded in that regard, that's kind of what I think about. I mean, I'm a pretty disciplined and hardworking individual, and I stay really diligent about those things, and never lose sight of it. And anytime I feel like we're getting a little out of kilter, we just kind of pull ourselves back. I mean, we have this amazing, we didn't really talk about it, but I think we have this amazing culture here, not just of being kind and nice and all the things which we are. We have a relentless desire, need to win, right? I mean, I think I played 2 sports in college, and like I like to have an athlete mentality, and I think like Kendra's the same. I mean, there's not a desire to win. It's like a must have to win. I think what happens a lot of times is there's organizations that have that mentality, and then there's organizations that have the opposite of that. Generally speaking, those things juxtapose each other.
Yeah.
This is the only time in my career that I've ever seen them work together, where we all collectively have that desire and need to win, and win by a lot, but also do it in a really kind, compassionate, empathetic, thoughtful way, with the customer kind of being at the center of all of it. So I think that, again, long way to answer your question, the customer coming first. I think being relentless and dogged about the things that matter, and the things that you can control. And I can control my work ethic and what I put into life, whether it's with my work family or my home family.
Yeah, that's such a powerful combination. And you're right. I mean, you don't see that a lot. And when those two combine, it's extraordinary.
A lot of people say it. There's a big difference between saying something and doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your reflections on your background and whatnot. That gave you that mentality as well. And I would love to ask you real quickly, just another little insight into your youth. You talked about your humble beginnings, so to speak. Was there something that you remember in your childhood or your youth that really gave you this this mindset? Because you do have a very humble but successful mindset. And I'm wondering, is there a person, or is there a thing, or is there an experience that really,
there's a lot of them. I remember very distinctly how it made me feel when the way that people talked to my parents, because they were lesser than, again, neither one of them have high school diplomas, and we'd be in some circles, and they were mistreated because of it, and it made me feel it made me angry, honestly. And I think it gave me a little bit of a chip on my shoulder of like having something to prove, to show people that you don't have to come from the right kind of place or go to the right schools to be able to. And Kendra's a college dropout, right? So like I think she's got that same engine in her. I would also say my parents, both of them, their work ethic was unbelievable. My dad worked for the Long Island Railroad, and then he did side jobs, and I mean it was unreal how hard he worked, like an animal. And my mom had all sorts of odd jobs. She had a Good Humor ice cream route. They had a hot dog truck. Like both of them, maniacs about like working to provide for us. You know, my sister and I, and my sister passed away 10 years ago. But like it was. Thank you. The work ethic, and then also like just inadvertently how to treat people. You know, and we never had a lot, but I never felt like I wanted anything. I mean, my parents always put us first and kept us centered in hard work and education, and you get out of life what you put into it. Just a lot of hard lessons that when I was a kid of there's no complaining, and I think that those are really important lessons that unfortunately not a lot of people get to learn or take away from those things. And I inadvertently did. I don't think a lot of it was purposeful. Maybe it was, but they certainly had impacts. And I think just people that impacted my life, coaches. I mean, I played every sport imaginable when I was a kid, and I learned that, and I wound up getting a scholarship to go to college to play baseball. And it was like I wasn't the best athlete, but I worked harder than everybody else. I'm like, I could, I control this, I can do it. And I think that those things applied to work have really paid high dividends for me.
Well, Tom, thank you for those reflections. And it's clear that, the most powerful way that you are continuing Kendra's tradition is simply by being the person that you are, because you have some amazing attributes and background. And thank you so much for sharing all that. So, just wrapping up, what's next for you guys? What's on the horizon? Anything new and exciting?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new and exciting things happening, Chris. I mean, just this year alone, we launched engagement rings, we launched watches, we launched Scott Brothers. We have, which is a men's line. We've got some really, really exciting things coming up down the pipeline, which are going to be extensions of our existing brand. And I think they're exciting because as Kendra's life as an individual is changing and evolving and growing and expanding, so is our brand. And it's done it in a really genuine, authentic way. So everything that's happened so far has happened as a result of where she is in her life and what's going on in her life or her children's lives. And I think what's going to happen in the future is going to be, more of that. I've been bullish on experience for a long time in retail, and we're seeing that paid some really nice dividends right now. So I think that'll continue to expand as well. And we just want to keep touching people, when we can and where we can in their markets and local communities, and delivering beautiful goods to them and helping them wherever they need it.
Well, I love that. So, Tom, it sounds like we've got all kinds of things we can talk to you about in the future as well.
Cool.
And I really thank you for taking the time today.
Well, I'm a fan of IBT, Chris. I appreciate your work. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be on here today, and I'm happy to do it again if it's helpful for y'all.
Wonderful, Tom. Take care.
All right. Take care, man.